everyone, welcome back to the Shrink Shake Pod. I'm Tina, I'm a counseling psychologist at the Coping Central.
And I am Utkarsha. I'm the founder of the Coping Central and also a counseling psychologist.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We love having you here. And if you're new here, hi, this is the Shrink Shake Pod. We started this because we're two shrinks
who love to shake things up.
Yeah, before we get into the episode today, a very quick disclaimer that this podcast is in no way, shape, or form a replacement for therapy. But if you do need therapy, you can find us at the Coping Central on Instagram. You can use our number, our email, our LinkedIn, anything to reach out to us, and everything's in the description below.
And thank you again for being here. If you're new here, we just started this podcast because we wanted to kind of put conversations around mental health, pop culture, everything that kind of impacts us in our everyday life out there. We didn't want therapy or mental health to be this mystified, secret thing. So hence we come here, we talk about stuff, we listen to your views, opinions, integrated into other episodes, which we've done. A couple of other episodes, you can always check them out. So yeah, let's get into the episode.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today, Tina?
I think it's been a few episodes since we took off our therapist hats, and it's a good time to sort of put them back on. And we thought we could talk about, what our books didn't teach us but really helped us as therapists,
or like what books said, that this is what you be, like what you have to be as a therapist. But then we realized that like it doesn't really work that way. I mean, no offense to the books, but
I am very much offended the books. Y'all suck. I mean, a little bit.
I mean, no offense to the books.
No offense. But somehow, a lot of the books that we did end up reading, a lot of the books that we were trained with, a lot of the theories that we were trained with, used a very westernized, colonized perspective to therapy. And we just, like, every day in our practice, quite literally reminds us that it sort of doesn't fit in, like go in tandem with what we do as therapists.
Yeah, like we were taught to be a therapist exactly to like a white man, straight man.
White middle-aged
straight man. And if you were to follow books, you would be great therapist for a white middle-aged straight man. But afsoos,
if white middle-aged men watching this, hit me up, babes.
We know how to be a therapist. Yes. We just choose not to be. But anyway, coming back, I feel like we live in a country that's not for white.
Woman realizes that we live in a different part of the world. Shocked.
Well. So yeah, we realized, we know that we don't live in a country where there are white middle-aged men only. So we understood that the teachings that we had from the books, they don't necessarily translate exactly to reality. Which is why I think we're going to talk about, and this is especially for the therapists out there, if you're just trainee therapists also, like if you're a student of psychology, you're wondering what it's like to be a therapist. You're just starting out, you've been a therapist for a couple of years, but you're kind of, trying to find your own identity. I think we're going to talk about like a couple of things that you don't really have to be as a therapist that your books tell you to, and how not being that actually helps you connect with your clients.
100%.
So I think the first thing that really comes to my mind here is that, when we were being taught what I think this is the first lesson in therapy is that you have to be like a blank slate, like this. Imagine if you were a blank slate. I don't know what it even means. Do you talk in monotone? Like, can you do this?
No. How dare you have a cough? How dare you express a physical mood?
Like a blank slate as a therapist would just be, thank you for coming to therapy.
Yeah, I'm a therapist.
Being here, I'm a therapist.
White man.
We're not built to be blank slates. I feel like also you can't be, like, being a blank slate basically means that when a therapist is in the therapy room, they're existing without any pre-existing knowledge. Like you have to only make sense of what the client is saying. Not true.
It's like being a therapist, not ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is blank slate who we kind of feed things into and it gets trained according to us.
Tell me more about
But being a blank slate therapist would mean, like, imagine if a client comes in and they said that, hey, did you watch this movie? Because I really feel like that character. I'll be like,
No,
no.
I don't watch movies. I do not care for movies, for I am a what.
And tell me about this character from your own words, because that's what it doesn't work.
That I feel like I would
I would
shit my pants if a therapist spoke to me like that.
I'm sure I will faint in sessions, both as a therapist and a client, if this is what I was to be met with.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that shared context is what makes therapy so beautiful, no?
Mhm.
Like, it's just the idea that, oh, my therapist knows exactly how Rani from Queen feels after being broken up,
Never.
and
Yeah.
I am feeling the same way, so I don't have to put my feelings into words and go through that again. I can just say that I'm feeling like Rani, and my therapist will get it.
Exactly, and it's not like that we don't explore deeper navigation of those feelings, but it gives you a good baseline.
Yeah.
That, oh, like, this is what we're working with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that metaphor kind of runs, no? Like,
Yeah.
okay, today I'm feeling like Rani when she was in Paris. Today I'm feeling like Rani when she was at the Golgappa competition.
Yeah.
Today I'm feeling like Rani in that pink dress, like walking and liberated and all of it. So it's a journey based on shared context.
I'm just gonna say I always feel like Rani on the bar. She just takes her sweater off and she keeps it in her purse. She's like, I'm not losing stuff today.
That's instinct. What is it? Survival instinct.
Survival instinct.
Very strong.
Are we really psychoanalyzing Queen?
And we must not. But yeah, and again, like with blank slate, I think comes the whole idea of, oh, you should be neutral. What?
Time for if you don't know what a is,
it's shrink, shake, sigh.
Always a good time to do a.
But what do you have to say? Are you neutral in therapy sessions?
Yeah, full. My clients will come in. They'll tell me big happenings of their life, and I'll just be like,
I would faint in front of you if you were to do this.
I feel like I think it is not human to be neutral, because you're constantly making choices. That if I sat down here and I have to think what I have to eat, I will even there be making a choice. So how is it that you can respond to human emotion with neutrality?
Yeah, and like you said that, right? Like with it's not neutral. I mean, it's not human to be neutral, because it's also not neutral to be human. Does that make sense?
It does not. Bring back articulation.
Rewinding. It's not human to be neutral, because I feel like that it's not really active choices that you have to make to stay non-neutral, right? Or to stay like political in a certain way. Like, it's like people say that, oh, therapy shouldn't be political and therapy should be neutral. Like, that's not it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, because therapy inherently is a very political space. You choose to break cycles, you choose to seek help, you are choosing to kind of address larger sort of systemic sort of oppression that might have existed. And if you're choosing to do that, having a therapist that's like, the problem is you, doesn't make sense. Like, it's not that.
And also, like, to bring our practice into this, we're both narrative practitioners, and narrative has this big principle that talks about how the problem is the problem, the person is not the problem. So I think it is essential to bring in systems and what's happening, and how do you stay neutral in the face of all of it?
Yeah, like, how do you stay neutral when somebody is in front of you and they're in utter distress because something that's happened to them is on a larger level, like is on a level of gender, is on a level of body, is on a level of some sexuality. Like, if it's on that level, how do you stay neutral there? How do you say that, oh, I don't have any feelings about this, I don't have any opinions about this, you are bringing whatever you are and I'm a blank slate? No. Like, I feel like as women, I feel like when we have women who are clients, the way that they talk about their like context, and they talk about their experiences, we're able to make so much sense of it, or we kind of resonate so much, because we've had similar contexts. We're women too, we understand what other women kind of go through. And not to say that, oh, we don't understand the problems of men or anybody from the other gender, but I think it's again the whole idea of, like what identity do I have on different levels. And it's just that there's a resonance. Of course,
Yeah.
there's our training and our skills that helps us to make sense of everybody else's experiences. But then when that kind of context is there, like
Yeah.
that sort of clicks, or that sort of shared identity is there, there can't be a blank slate.
Yeah, and it's also solidarity, like
Yeah.
when you bring in how women come into therapy, or if people who are queer come into therapy, and like we resonate with those identities or find ourselves there, it's also like an immediate sense that I truly know, I understand that. I think I can't find myself to say the words I understand if I don't, as a therapist. So it's those moments that really help you, like relationally connect
Yeah.
to someone.
Yeah, and this is just an example. Like this stands true for maybe like a client. Again, somebody who's an Indian, somebody maybe who lives in Delhi, and they talk about something that's very core to Delhi. They're like if example, my client comes in and they're like, like last night we went to India Gate after the match and it was such a great feeling. I know exactly what that feeling is.
Yeah, or like my brain feels like Rajiv Chowk on a Monday.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
like oh shit, dude, like
yeah,
makes sense.
like, and similarly, like if like sometimes the clients come in and they're like, oh, like have you been to Bombay? Because they're like, oh, I went to Dadar in P-cards, and I'm like, man, I know exactly how that feels. They're like, oh, you know Bombay. I say, yeah, I know Bombay. And then they're able to kind of connect so much better. So if they say that I went to Dadar on P-cards, or Rajiv Chowk on a Monday, and then we're like, what does it mean? You tell me. It's a feeling that can't be explained.
Yeah.
Like you've had to be there to actually know what
Yeah,
it's
and
like.
I mean, in no way are we trying to say that therapists need to have all experiences.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But then if you do have it, why cause that immediate barrier?
Yeah.
That, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like no one's ever asking to prescribe your own meaning to it.
Yeah.
No, like, okay, what does Dadar at P-cards feel to you?
Yeah.
I understand what it feels for me, and I understand the visuality, or like sort of like the thing of it. But what is it for you? Sure. But then having a blank slate just seems so unsettling.
And it's such a big gap between you and the
Yeah.
person you're working with. Like, why bring that in? You're right. Like, if you have had that experience, like, why close yourself off?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't play hard to get when you're a therapist.
Please don't. It's not serving anyone.
Yeah.
And
I think the yap
is that your experiences will help you connect far more than books will. And books are important, theories are important, but then don't close yourself off to like these chances at connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a nice thing, because I always say that, books kind of give you a good thing to fall back upon, but what kind of builds you up is your experience in life and what you've gone through. And again, like Tina said earlier, that it doesn't mean that only a therapist who's been in your position will get you, or as a therapist you've had all the experiences to be a therapist. It's not that, but it's just that if you've had the experiences, don't close yourself off, because that pushes you away from the client. That's just inauthentic.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think that comes from it is, again, because there is such a blank slate and there are no expressions, there's nothing you have to feel, then it's just the whole idea of, oh, you have to look a certain way, your expression should be a certain way. What do you think about that, ma'am?
I think I might bring in an example of one of the trainings that I had to be a therapist, and I was sitting with a professor and she gave us an example of how sometimes she would use expressions to create distance or like emulate the size of the problem that's happened. So she was like, a client was telling me something that was a big change, and she told me, she said, I went like and she said the distance between me and the client matched the distance of the problem that had happened, and that example changed my life. That it's so important to emote, because sometimes our emotions can feel smaller, our emotions can feel insignificant, and when someone else responds to them in a way that we might want them to, it sort of helps us recalibrate how we're feeling around it.
Yeah.
Like, imagine someone telling you a really distressing thing and you're just like, yeah, Well,
And I feel like that would make me feel like I am overreacting to a
Yeah.
problem. That oh,
My
something
goodness.
really horrible happened to me, and my therapist is like, okay. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
that's it. That's all I get. And I'm just like, give me some drama, man. Throw tears and they fall off your chair or something. That's something I want.
Not like sure, not tears, but I've had sessions where I've been told something and I've just gone like, what?
Yeah.
Like this. I'm just like, huh? Like a gasp, clutching my pearls.
Like a shrink shake sigh, but a
A
therapy
shrink shake
sigh.
sigh.
But no, yeah, you're right. Like I feel like that, especially like again coming to the cultural part of it, I feel like we've also grown up in a country where a lot of dismissal is there of emotions that don't feel, don't show, don't do this, just be proper at all times. And if we're coming into therapy because of being proper, and our therapist is also being proper, then it's just that trauma reliving in a certain way. Like you come here to kind of not be proper and break out of these molds and just be free.
But then also, like, you know, when you say break out of these molds, if we're also doing the same thing in therapy, we're just setting it right back to the default.
Yeah.
That, oh, I am used to not showing emotion.
Yeah.
I am fine with it.
Yeah.
So then, if we are to break that cycle, some change has to come, no?
Yeah.
And then, you know how you said that. I forgot what you said. Sorry. Can you be more memorable?
Thanks.
Bringing back articulation. But also just the idea that if every emotion has to be proper, then therapy will be a safe space.
Yeah.
I think big shrink shake pod lesson coming up, that therapy is not a safe space. And to give more context about this, we talk about heavy, difficult feelings and we build on the safety. We can't promise that, you know, oh, you've entered and now it's a safe space. Sometimes there come, like, emotions come with risk.
Yeah.
And again, holding.
Yeah.
Go back to our previous episodes to understand what holding is.
We'll always give holding sort of callback. But you're right, like therapy is a safe space in terms of like, don't let your therapist hit you. But therapy is not necessarily a safe space in terms of that it won't always cushion you. It always kind of, it won't necessarily, you know, like kind of it won't always be like, I think that's what we said, therapy is not a yes man space. Like you will be challenged and you will be questioned and you will be tended to and you will be cared for, and it's all emotions everywhere, and emotions don't necessarily always make us feel safe, but we build that safety, we build that comfort, we build that sort of capacity. As we said, call back again.
Watch our previous videos, man.
We build that capacity, and you're right that, you know, it needs to be like the therapist needs to be the one who's kind of holding that charge in a certain way. And I feel like that so many times our clients also mirror the way that we sit in the therapy room. We are in the therapy room. So I've noticed this, you know, like whenever I'm sitting across a client and I'm on a chair and they're on the couch and I'm like, oh, I've had a very long day and I want to put my legs up, and I'm like, just I'm sitting with my legs up, or I'm sitting with my shoes off and I am maybe sipping on water and I'm sitting like this and I'm listening to them and I see them get comfortable, you know, like clients come in and they're like, oh, if I put my legs up, they're like, oh, can we also take our shoes off and sit around? So I'm like, yeah, this is your space to take up. This is where you do it.
I think this sort of brings me to ask you that what have your books or like our books taught us about body language and how you express yourself in a physical or like even online therapeutic space?
I think in the books it's just that, oh, you should be, your back should be straight. There should be like it is there, no?
Sure, like distance, chalo, theek hai.
But like there's like an optimal distance.
Yeah, there's a like if you ever pull up any of these books, Passer and Smith, Morgan and King, there's like an arrow, like optimal distance 6 feet between client and therapist.
Distance is of course great. Like I don't want to sit like this to my client.
What's up, man?
But there is no optimal distance. Like it's you're based on your comfort and what feels nice. And I think your therapy room, physical or online, is a reflection of what you're bringing in for the client. And you can also see the clients and what they bring in. And I feel like that's so important. And books have taught us to stay stoic, not fidget a lot, I mean, I
Yeah.
would faint if I wouldn't fidget.
I think this is something I do in all my therapy sessions. Like if I enter in and I say like, "Hey, how are you? What's up? This is what I'm fidgeting with today." So if
Yeah.
I have a rubber band or like I have a toy, and that also allows people who are coming into therapy to build that connection.
Yeah.
That, oh, Tina, like you were fidgeting, so we also thought we could get this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
important.
And that's exactly like if we give a blank slate or we give like stoicness, I don't know what the word is.
Stoicness.
Stoicness,
English
then the
is
client's
fake.
also kind of taking away that, no? Like they'll also mirror us and be like, oh, maybe we also have to be a blank slate. Like if I'm a blank slate, I'm like, and the client is like, oh, I can't express, so what? Like I have to be also.
Mhm.
Then I'll be like, oh, how did that make you feel?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay only.
Okay only. Then which is why I hold the responsibility to be like that. Hey, that sounds horrible. How did that make you feel? And then they're like, oh yeah, maybe
That
it
does
was
sound
horrible.
horrible.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, then it makes sense that it made me feel that way, right? Like
Yeah.
because it's instantly validated that whatever you're feeling, it's not to be met with, it's to be met with, yeah. I think
Gasp.
like
Because
like I like again I think that's where we also kind of draw a little boundary as a
Yeah.
therapist, that if a client is expressing, that's not our stage to perform on.
absolutely
Like I'm
not.
like, oh my god,
You
crying,
don't
I'm
have
so
a
bad.
meltdown.
Like that's no.
But also, what we've been speaking about is based off of instinct, right? That let's say if you're talking to a friend, if I'm telling you something that this person spoke to me like this, you would just go like, "What? How dare they?" Like, not saying that your therapist is your friend, but those sort of windows of connection don't not exist in therapy.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
and I feel like that's the thing. Like that's what we've been trying to say, right? That you have to. I think the yap is, bring your humanness into therapy, and I feel like that's the thing that, like what I was saying, that your clients kind of mirror
Yeah.
what you do. So don't be a brick.
Yeah.
Don't be a brick in there. Like if you're a brick, then you're not a therapist.
If you're a brick, then you're not a therapist. Sure, be like cement. Like,
But cement also hardens.
yeah.
Be like clay.
Clay.
Clay, good mold.
Sweet.
Like
yeah.
like if you're a brick, you're just like.
Hold on. Why was your first instinct after thinking about a brick to swing it?
It's
just
just
Billy's
context. Same episode recall. Call back. Let's go. But
Delhi's ho gaya.
But anyway, I am against violence of any kind. Please let that be noted to
Yes,
all
please.
the
I am
jury.
kidding. Call back to last video. I am deeply unserious about the jokes I make.
But yeah, like don't be stoic. Don't be bricky in therapy. Be clay. So then you also kind of get molded according to what your client is saying. If they're
Yeah.
sad, your body should tell them that you're also feeling that sadness, right?
Yeah.
If they're happy, your excitement should be in your eyes in the way that you talk to them, and it just kind of creates such a nice space for anyone who's coming into therapy, because then they know that somebody gets them, right? They know that
100%.
somebody is kind of out there and they're kind of comfortable hearing what the client is feeling, and
Yeah.
that's a nice thing.
I think it's a lovely thing, and it's so important that your experiences, again, like I feel like I've said this before, but will teach you far more
Yeah.
than anything ever will.
Yeah.
So it's very important to sort of tap into that, tap into your feelings, your core clay center. No?
Talking about feelings, I feel like
Hmm.
the most important, not controversial, but spoken about feeling in therapy is
Yeah.
humor. Are you funny in therapy?
Constantly. Always. Not to say that if someone's bringing in something difficult, I'm just like, but humor is such an essential tool to therapy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like, to me, if all coping mechanisms were on a shelf, humor feels like the easiest to grab.
Yeah, and also humor is so contextual. It's
Yeah.
learned. It's something that helps us connect with others so
Mhm.
well. So, like again, humor not at the cost of somebody,
Yeah.
but if I'm able to understand something that happened to me and I'm able to kind of make sense of it
Mhm.
out of a joke or from a meme or from laughing about it in a certain
Yeah.
way, and I'm feeling all the feelings that have to be felt, And why not?
Why
Like, why
not?
not?
Why
Why
not?
not? And I feel like it's such a that expectation that's on therapists. No, you won't laugh a lot,
Yeah,
or
but
like every joke you make will be analyzed in therapy.
absolutely not. Chillax is all I'm saying. You know, like if I have to give an example, a lot of times when I was reading these books, I was told that okay, if a client makes a joke in therapy, you must unpack it. You must
Hmm.
open it up. Sometimes we just joke for the sake of it because
Yeah.
it sort of takes away the barrier of pain to talk about something. So if you really look
Yeah.
at it, someone joking about what's happened to them is really them trying to talk about it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
and I always say this that like if you're joking about it, that means you're ready to talk about it. If you're
100%.
not joking about it, there's nothing. That means there's so much pain that's still
Yeah.
there, that it's very fresh. If
Mhm.
you're joking about it, then you're like, okay, this is an invite that you come into my
Yeah.
experience and let's kind of figure it out
Mhm.
together.
And also, I'm not saying that you have to laugh at every joke a client makes.
Yeah, like
Sometimes let's say a client makes a joke about something that's really painful. So I might say something like, please feel free to laugh about it. I just can't find the room in my heart to do that
hmm,
right now. But feel free to use humor.
yeah.
And sometimes you just laugh with them on it.
And I feel like it's also a therapist's call, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think you have to kind of also understand that a joke can be used to hide some other
Hmm.
feeling. So it's your instinct that you then go
Yeah.
with. A joke can be to kind of impress you, right? And I think that
Yeah.
that's where you kind of catch a client and be like, hey, I get you, you're very funny, but you're not getting a grade.
Yeah.
So if you want to kind of get into other stuff also
Mhm.
and not just making me laugh all the time,
Yeah.
let's do it. So if you're joking to impress your therapist, they know
No.
they will catch you. Like I'm sure. But I think like if it's a joke that kind of like makes it easier for you to talk about
Yeah.
things, or it helps to kind of make sense of your own
Then
experiences.
why not?
Yeah, and a therapist is also allowed to kind of join in that joke.
Dude, 100%. It's not my fault that my clients are so funny, is all
Yeah.
I'm saying. If I have to give an example like this, I'm bringing this with consent. I was saying context.
Bring articulation.
Thank you. Bringing
Bring
back
back
articulation.
articulation.
A client asked me because I always ask that, what do you want the space to feel like today? And there was this need for the space to be chill and everything. And then they were like, what do I even say? And then face blank, they go like, point blank, they go like, Tina, would you be my therapist if I was a worm? And I was like, yeah, 100%. I was like, I'd probably learn how to like write things on leaves and feed them to you. But it's so. If I were to tell this to, I don't know, APA, they would be like, huh? Hello?
Is
Hello,
worm a
APA?
diagnosis? You've been
Hey
diagnosed with.
DSM, my client is a worm. Can I still therapize them?
Okay, so for context, APA and DSM are like the APA is like the big organization
Big
of
boy.
psychology. DSM is like the big guardian of psychology. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
something along those lines. But yeah,
essentially.
like coming back to humor and yap.
Yeah, the yap is for humor that it is an incredibly important tool in therapy, and we are by no means saying that you have to laugh at everything a client brings in, but then don't block it off as a means of connection, essentially.
Yeah, and I feel like that it's also so important to kind of understand, no, in a certain way. Like
Yeah.
if your client is kind of coming in and they're telling you, like I think this goes back to the older points that we have, that humor also comes in with so much of context. Like there's
Yeah.
so much Indianness that kind of comes in the kind
Mhm.
of humor that our clients bring in, because I feel like that, okay, this one time I was having a conversation with a client and then they told me this crush they were having, and they're like, oh, I feel like Ali Bhai. And
From Doom.
from Doom, Ali Bhai from Doom. And I'm like, I get it. And I laughed. Because
Yeah.
obviously that's a funny thing to say that helps me understand where you are, in your crush stage. And that helps me to also understand, oh, this is the intervention that you need probably. So it also kind of drives theory so much in a certain way. And again, as a therapist, don't tell your clients, oh, I also feel like that. No,
No, absolutely not.
that's not what you're doing. But I think like that's the thing, that humor, all of these little jokes, the kind of context that you bring
Yeah.
in. And I'm sure clients can also get like, get what we're thinking, and
Mhm.
from our sort of expressions. Like I've had clients when I've done this, when they're talking, they're like, oh, am I in the wrong? And I'm like, maybe think about it. But I think like that's,
It's so important
yeah,
because I've had I've had clients tell me that, Tina, I know what that face means. And I'm
yeah.
just
Like I
little
feel
bit.
like that humor, context, expressions,
Mhm.
all of this also helps your client know you as a person.
Yeah, and also break that sort of dynamic of power, no?
Yeah.
That these books that have taught us to do that so
Yeah.
much, this sort of helps put that in practice. That
Yeah.
if you're like a blank slate, then you probably won't know what the person is
And
feeling.
I'm sure I'll get intimidated if I feel like that I don't know what my therapist is thinking.
Yeah.
It's like I'm talking to a wall. I don't want to talk
Brick.
don't be a brick. Be an expressive clay. But yeah, like if I'm like this, or I'm like, haha, I'm like,
Mm.
but like all of these faces kind of tell my clients that, hey, this is what my therapist is also thinking.
Yeah.
So this matches. And I feel like that's such a nice thing to have. So I think the grand yap is that as therapists, although we're taught to kind of, like bring in neutrality and blankness and nothing really into therapy, that's not possible. Like if you're a human and you're a good therapist, you will your humanness will enrich
Will
your
shine
therapist.
through.
Yeah, and it will enrich the therapy
Mhm.
experience for your
For sure.
client and you. And I feel like keeping that out of the room and only coming in, like if I'm wearing like a blue shirt and my client's also wearing the blue shirt, that's instant
Yeah.
connection. And I'm like, hey,
twins.
and that's that. And it can also just stay there. Like
Mm.
in that moment, it's a connection. And that just adds to the experience.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a thing that when you're looking at it, add humor. Like don't take up your client space, but add humor.
Yeah.
You're okay to kind of express. You're
Mhm.
okay to frown. You're okay to not be a blank slate.
And you don't have to sit like a brick like this. Please, your back will hurt and you'll be tired and you'll
Like
be
don't slouch.
Don't just be like, hey man, like, oh yeah. Don't do that. Be attentive, be there, but also be you.
Yeah.
What kind of shit advice is that?
Call back.
to the
We
same
call
episode.
anyway. But I think like that's the thing that that's the whole idea of being a clay, no? That your clients might want you to mold a certain way, and they
Yeah.
will help you gain that shape, and we'll also kind of like have that sort of space to be stretchy, to be like this, to be like that. And I think that that's the thing that you bring in your experiences in the therapy room that
Mhm.
only helps the therapy space. So don't be afraid,
Yeah.
I guess.
Do it scared.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's us for today. Thank you for staying. If you stayed till the end, thank you for watching. And please let us know what you'd like to hear more of from us. And yeah, we're gonna be shrinking like being
We're
therapists
shaking
and
things. We're
shaking
shrinks and we'll be shaking things up. But to remind you, we're both therapists
Mhm.
from the Coping Central. You can always reach out to us. And it is really, really helpful to always hear from you. We talk about mental health, we talk about pop culture, we talk about a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
hearing from you helps us
A
grow.
lot. Oh,
Yeah.
helps us grow a lot.
Yeah. So thank you for being here, and it's a goodbye from us today. Bye.
Bye.